All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Stay in your place. This is for Black women in toxic jobs. If you've been in a situation where there's other people who look like you in a workplace, a toxic workplace, and they're telling you to stay in your place. So I wanted to share about my experiences. You might be able to relate to it, but I wanted to talk about it because when I talk about toxic jobs, particularly for Black people, I've talked on numerous videos about ways that a toxic job can really parallel like a plantation, like the plantation types of dynamics. So, as I've been planning the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women with Marissa Price, which again, if you haven't registered, please register May 18th and 19th. You can get in by clicking in the link in the description section. So, I'm co hosting this with Marissa Price. And what I've noticed is that as I've been working with Marissa to really get everything organized for the summit, there's a lot of things that have been coming up for me about the previous toxic job that I was in. And it's been very cathartic, actually, for me to connect to these memories and to talk about it. So it's my way of processing that toxicity out of my system, part of my healing. So, as I've talked about in a number of my videos as well, that the healing from a toxic job really happens once you leave. So as these memories are coming up, I was like, I'm going to talk about it on YouTube. So as you remember, I first started my YouTube channel as a way for me to start healing from a toxic job, but I was still there. So I was just processing what was happening at the time because I knew that part of what they were doing to me was not only disrespectful, and they were trying to silence me and humiliate me. So my response to that was, I'm going to get louder. I'm going to create a YouTube channel. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an example of all skin folk and kinfolk, what I experienced with some Black people at that job, really trying to get me to stay in my place and how that parallels plantation dynamics. And I want to again thank everyone who's reached out to me as I'm sharing my story, because as I mentioned, it's cathartic for me to be able to talk about these things, because for so long it was not only painful, but it was shameful. I felt ashamed about what I had experienced, but now I'm no longer ashamed of it. I'm open and talking about it because I didn't do anything wrong. And again, I want to get this toxicity out of my system. And what I'm finding is that the more I talk about these situations, the more Black women can relate to what I'm saying. So it is helpful to other people. So I will continue to talk about my experiences. A little long-winded. I didn't even introduce myself. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, and more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. And on my YouTube, I talk about ways to support Black women leaving and healing from toxic jobs. So part of what I do also, and what I'm doing is I'm co-hosting the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women with Marissa Price, May 18th and 19th, talking about ways to walk through mindset issues such as the fears of leaving a toxic job, how to replace your income, what to do about your health insurance, your retirement, your life insurance, and so much more. So much more. So let's go back to the topic of this video today. So I want to give you several examples of what happened to me when I was at that toxic job with other Black people trying to keep me in my place. So there was one situation where I was going out to the community. So my position before I was demoted was a lot of community work. So I was asked to go to this community meeting in South LA about trauma. So it was a huge meeting, a lot of people there, and the workplace bully was there. What was interesting about the workplace bully and we didn't really like each other. I think it was right. I think we didn't like each other. So, but when we would go out to different events outside of the workplace, she wouldn't acknowledge me. She just wouldn't acknowledge me. And it really didn't bother me, really, because I really didn't want to be around her either. So it really didn't bother me. So anyway, so we're at this event, and so she's presenting on trauma. So keep in mind, I used to work for a school district, and our unit, the mental health unit, was really known for kind of leading the charge within the school district of helping the school district become trauma informed. So she kind of put herself out there as like this trauma expert, which is very ironic because she was the main perpetuator of trauma within our whole unit. But okay, put a pause on that. So anyway, so she's presenting and she's talking about trauma in general and the prevalence of trauma and all this other kind of stuff. So one of the women in the audience asked about, well, what about like historical trauma and, microaggressions? Are you guys addressing that? Okay. So I'm sitting there because, again, I have co created this training about historical trauma, racial trauma, microaggressions, epigenetics, implicit bias. I've already co-developed this training. And again, I had the vision for creating it because our unit said nothing about racial traumas, historical trauma, even though we were seeing so many examples in the media about what was happening to Black people in terms of violence. So our unit didn't even address it all. Like it was like a huge elephant in the room. Like, let's not even talk about it. So again, I had the vision. I reached out to another Black woman. I created this training, right? Well received throughout the district. Our unit didn't really co-sign onto it until it was that pets a threat situation that I talked about in the previous video. So anyway, so she knows that I have co-developed this training. She knows that I've been training across the district. By this time, my other colleague, the other Black woman, was no longer training with me. She knew that. She knew that I developed this training, and she saw me at the event. So she says, "Oh, you're right. We need to develop something like that." Now, I've talked to you before that I have a hard time with not speaking truth, and if people are saying things that's not true, I feel compelled to say something, particularly when it relates to the work that I do that I'm so passionate about. So I raised my hand. It was a lot of people in that meeting. So I raised my hand and then she finally acknowledges me, right? You can't ignore me because my hand is raised. So she says, "Oh, we have one of our fabulous trainers here right now." You didn't acknowledge me before, but now I'm one of the fabulous trainers. Okay. So I spoke the truth and I said, well, actually, we do have a training that I co-developed about racial trauma, historical trauma, and I broke it down, right? And I was like, I couldn't sit there and have you lie and tell these people that we don't have anything like this. And you know that I've co-developed it and you know I've been training and you're just gonna flat out lie that we don't have something like that, right? So after that, I talked to other Black people about it, and I'm being mindful. I'm not calling out people. So I told a Black woman about what happened, and this is what she said to me. She said, "Oh, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. She hates you." That's what she told me. That's what my Black colleague told me, Black woman colleague. And when she told me that, I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm a grown woman. What are you talking about? I'm going to get it. Like, I'm not a kid. I'm a grown woman. And then when she was like, "Oh, you're going to get it, you better watch out." Okay. Now, I already knew about the workplace bully and retaliation, all that kind of stuff, because if you've seen my other videos, I've talked about that this workplace bully had a history of terrorizing people, particularly Black women. And there was actually a lawsuit that was settled for one of the Black women who I've actually previously interviewed, okay, a Black woman administrator. So there's already a track record. So, I'm like, okay, I'm filing this away. But the message there was, how dare you speak up? You should have stayed in your place, right? So because you didn't stay in your place, you're about to get it. So that was one example. Another example was when I would talk about Black kids in the school district, because again, I'm in Los Angeles, so the demographic here is different, where Black kids are a small percentage of the population. And when there were like rollouts for different things, to support students, I would always be the one, well, what about Black students? What about Black students? And I had been pulled aside by a number of Black people and said, and I was told, we have to take baby steps. We don't want to make people uncomfortable. So we have to be, grateful for, the things that they are starting to do. They're starting to be more open about things. So, we have to be patient and take baby steps. That did not sit well with me because I was thinking about, okay, so all these Black students have to just wait and take baby steps, and they are being underserved within the school district, and they are at risk for so many different things, but you want me to take baby steps? That did not sit well with me. There were other situations where Black people within the district, so again, tell me to stay in my place. Like, just be quiet about it. Don't cause too much of a trouble because we're starting to get some crumbs now. That was the message to me when I had seen that the district would move heaven and earth, for other kids who were not Black. I would see that. I saw that happen so many different times. They would pull resources together, financial, staff resources, all these other things. But when it came to Black kids, crickets. And the message that I got from some other Black people, not all Black people, some other Black people in the school district was they would talk about, how Black kids weren't prioritized, but they would whisper about it. And I was like, why are we whispering? Like, what are we doing here? Why are we whispering like we're doing something wrong? So again, like we're on a plantation and we don't want Master to know that we're talking about Black kids. I'm thinking, okay, aren't we here to support all kids, including Black kids? So why are we whispering here? Okay. So those are examples of, again, other Black people in the workplace telling me to stay in my place. Okay. The last example that I want to share with you was this was after I was demoted. Okay. So I've talked about what happened that led to my demotion. Okay. So watch my other videos about that. And it was when I was demoted back to my entry level position, right? So I've been promoted before, but all of that slick and sneaky and lies and stuff they were doing, they put me all the way back to my entry level position. So this was the first meeting back to work. So with the school district, you're off for the summer and you come back. So this is the first meeting back to my demoted position. And we're having like this group meeting. And so it was like everybody tried to act like they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that I was demoted. Like and these are all mental health professionals, but let's all pretend like we don't know anything. So we come into this meeting and the administrator is trying to do like this team building or something or whatever. And she says, okay, so welcome back. And let's, so excited to have you guys and have a new school year. We're so honored to have Kamani back with us. And I'm sick. I'm mortified. I don't want to be there. Again, my entry level position that I was in maybe 10, 11 years before that time. Okay. So I'm sitting there. And so she says, okay, so we're going to do a grounding activity. And we're going to, with your elbow partner, talk about highlights of your summer, something like that. It was something, but I'm literally sitting there sick because I know what's happened to me. I know they know what's happening to me, but they're acting like, oh, this great thing. Kamani's come back and we're so happy to have her on the team. What? So anyway, so my elbow partner is another Black woman. And this is another example of all skin folk and kinfolk and, stay in your place. So she turns to me and she's like trying to ask me the question about whatever the prompt was for this group activity. And I said, I'm not going to do this. Like, I could not lie to myself that I'm going to be light and play with you about what I did over the summer. And I'm sick and mortified. So this Black woman told me, girl, don't be like that. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Right. So I was like, be like what? I'm a grown woman. I'm not going to pretend like what's happening is not happening. I'm not going to do that. So, of course, that didn't go over well. Okay. So, when you are in your work environment, you might encounter Black people, other Black people who, because of their own fears about massa, and massa it could be another Black person. Okay. So when I talk about massa and the plantation, it's anybody who engages in white supremacist behavior. So it may be another Black person, but they're not trying to disrupt the system or anything because of their own fears, or maybe they want to promote or they don't want undue attention on them or all those other things. So they don't want you to be the rowdy Black person and mess things up. And so I guess I was a rowdy Black person. And so people were telling me, stay in my place, just take things slow, or, you're going to get it, or all these other kind of things, which again, to me, that was another sign that this is not the place for me. It's a place where Black people, were scared to talk about the rights of Black kids, even though you're working for the school district. And Black people who would tell me that I was going to get it because I spoke up. So I knew that this was not the environment for me. Now, it took a while for me to get my exit plan together. And I wanted to share this with you too, because my hope is that you hear what I've gone through and you start exit planning sooner than I did. There's a number of reasons why I didn't exit plan at that time, mainly because of my fears about finances, and that also that mindset I had that I was going to fight these people and they were going to run me out, and I was going to fight for Black kids even if other people weren't, and even if other people weren't going to save Black students, I was going to do it. All those lies. Okay, so I had to address my mindset, which I did in therapy and coaching, and also my financial plan, which I got together by working with a Black woman financial psychologist. And I'm sharing this with you because all of this information that I wish I would have had, that I spent so much time in a toxic job trying to get myself together before I could leave, all of this stuff is going to be covered in the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. So the mindset stuff, right? So looking at what are the things that you are saying to yourself and what needs to be addressed so that you are able to say, what is keeping me at this job? What is it? Is it the fears? And if it is the fears, which we all have realistic fears about leaving, even if the job is toxic, how to walk through the fears, and also how to create your financial plan. Because again, if that's what's keeping you there, let's talk about how to address that and how to come up with a plan. So again, the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women, May 18th and 19th, privacy consideration, no one will know you are there. Your face will not be on camera. Your name will not be listed. If you have a question or a comment, you can change your name in the platform. So again, I'm just coming on because this has been so cathartic for me as I've been planning the summit. All this stuff has been coming up about the previous toxic job. And part of my healing is to talk about it, is to get this out of my system. But knowing that the more I talk about it, I'm helping other Black women because you all are reaching out to me and telling me thank you. So as I'm signing off, again, register for the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. Also share this information with other Black women. So share this video with at least 2 other Black women. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. And please give this video a thumbs up. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.